right, hello, hi, welcome to my Airbnb. We are not in our normal location today, so we're doing the best we can with our video setup. Y'all know how I like my aesthetics. Y'all know how I like things to look good. We're doing the best we can. We're doing the best we can. But we just did our energy exchange video where we found out that the energy we would most benefit from releasing today was powerlessness. Love that. And a new energy we could call in its place was worthiness. Love that. So we did our breath exchange, we did our focus, we did our brief mindfulness exercise where we tried to let that go from our body. That's like a first great step, is like, where is this energy living in my body? Because if I can release it from there, then great. Then we have all the more access to the next place we're going to go, which is into the subconscious realm, right? Into the spiritual realm, into that place where my high self and your high self are sitting at a table, talking, sharing, looking at the old Akashic record, looking at all of our soul contracts, looking at all of our soul histories and saying, what happened here? What called in this energy of powerlessness? Because once we can figure it out, then maybe we can release it. It's so easy for something that is unconscious or something in the subconscious to be fueling us and operating us in a way that isn't in our highest good. And so then once we bring it to the light, we bring it to the surface, we bring it into the conscious realms to look at it, then we can have responsibility over what happens to it next. We can say, okay, yeah, I still want this to lead me, guide me, operate me, fuel me. Or we can say, I actually think I'm going to intentionally release that story, release that outdated belief, release that old contract, that old vow, that old attachment, that old addiction, that old agreement, so that I can function better without it. And again, in this particular case, I would think all of us would function a lot better without the energy of powerlessness fueling us and operating us. And then after that, we'll look at worthiness, and we'll see, are we blocked to worthiness? If so, what is blocking us? And can we get open to actually believing ourselves as worthy? Because the fact of the matter is, we are all worthy inherently, just as we are, but the sense of unworthiness is an old story. It's an old belief. It's an old energy. Maybe it's trauma. Maybe it's something your caregiver told you when you were a child. Maybe it was your high school experience. Maybe it was experience in a past life that is just carried forward with you into this one. And so we're going to look at that. And why don't we just start with that, actually? Let's get our percentages first. We love using percentages in spiritual response technique. And in part, it's because they're really easy to understand. You can kind of like imagine it, right? Like if you have I always do hand gestures. I feel weird doing hand gestures, but we're going to do it again. So if you have an opening, let's say you have the opening to a sewer, right? Don't know why you would want to go into the sewer, but let's say you have the opening to the sewer. You can look at it and you can see like, oh wow, yeah, half of the sewer lid is on, so it's 50% open, but it's also 50% blocked by the lid. So, you can it just helps to think about things in those terms. And I also like percentages because it allows duality to exist, because you can be 100% open and 100% blocked at the same time. Something can be 75% in your benefit and also 75% detrimental. Now, what do we do when that crazy making happens and we're like, how is this thing good and bad for me all at the same time? Well, that's when you get to use your free will and say, okay, I know that this is equal parts good and bad for me. Now it just comes down to, what do I want to experience? What consequences do I want to deal with? What thing do I want to have to, confront next in my life? If I want to confront this kind of good or this kind of bad, then you get to make that decision, but you get to make that decision with full conscious awareness of knowing what you're working with. Not only the ingredients that you're working with, but like, again, the cost-benefit analysis. When I tell you that I use SRT all the time for cost-benefit analysis, it's a lot. It's a lot. And before I had SRT, I was the kind of person who would just loop in cycles forever, not knowing what the right thing to do was, because I think I could inherently see that something wasn't always all good or all bad, but I didn't know how to find the way to really break it down in a way that would help me then make decisions about what to do. And SRT has been so helpful for me. And that, again, SRT stands for Spiritual Response Technique. It is the charts that I'm using right now. This is the modality of dowsing that I am doing. You can dowse in many different ways with many different types of charts. You can find them on my Etsy shop. I've created some of my own, but this one in particular is a certain kind of modality. You have to get trained in it. You have to have access to these particular charts. And otherwise you can be dowsing, but you're not going to be doing spiritual response technique because it's very specific to this, this language, this story, this, you know, the methodology, let's say that. So I just got distracted, and now we're going to say, what percent are we open to our own worthiness? That's 0. So my 0 is down here, my 100's up here. So that's 0% open. Now what percent are we blocked to our worthiness? 100%. So we're not open and we're not blocked. Not great. Not good at all. So we are going to look at that. We're going to look at that here in a bit. But first, let's find out, is this powerlessness physical, mental, emotional, or spiritual? Physical, mental, emotional, or spiritual. So I'm just going to ask, of those, which one is it? Physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. Spiritual. We're back on the spiritual train, y'all. We're always on the spiritual train. Let's just not fool ourselves into thinking that we're not always on the spiritual train. But again, it has felt like this week, this last actually probably now 2 weeks that we're leading into, has been very deep in the spiritual realm kind of stuff. So, hi, let's drop in. You ready for a potential roller coaster ride? That's a fun thing that happens, is like, there's some weird stuff that can come up. The spiritual realms are bizarre, y'all. I still don't fully understand it. I believe in it, and I'm trying to continue to educate myself, and I believe in things because of the access that I have, the information that I have, the visions, the insights, whatever. But it is hard to fully buy into it when you don't see it necessarily tangibly in your day-to-day, when you don't, physically see the angel that is sitting next to you, or physically see the realms that are all existing at the same time. So I get it, but we're gonna look at it today and see what's going on. So spiritual powerlessness. We're feeling spiritually disempowered. And what is the root story here? What is the root story of this spiritual disempowerment? This is interesting. I think this is an archetype chart. Oh no, this is just current psychological disharmony, obstacles to. Interesting. Impulsive, compulsive, careless, or unkind acts. Interesting. Okay, so I don't get this chart very often. This is an add-on chart that was added on to spiritual response technique after the original charts were published. And so it's not one that comes up a lot, though when it does, that's why I really want to take it super seriously. So we are avoiding impulsive, compulsive, careless, or unkind acts. And this has led to powerlessness. This is really interesting because I'm kind of looking especially at this impulsive thing. And I'm almost wondering if a lot of people right now are feeling like if they leaned into their spiritual power, it would feel too impulsive, too compulsive, because again, it isn't grounded in reality. And so we're looking at it like, oh my gosh, it'd be so impulsive of me if I was like, started to get into tarot, or started to get into spiritual response technique, or, showed up to be my full spiritual self. Maybe that feels compulsive or impulsive. So now, Spirit, what percent am I getting that interpretation right? I'm at about 80% right. So there's something more here that I'm missing, and I believe that because it's complicated. And I don't get that very often in these charts. So what else is going on here when it comes to, wow, I can't find my chart one today. There it is. What else is going on here when it comes to this powerlessness? So there's something here with impulsivity, compulsivity. Interesting. I don't have that book on me. Of course that's going to come up because I can't travel with all the books that I have. It makes it difficult. They're very heavy. Okay, so what else though? What else can you show me here? Okay, an archetype or identity, a wounding of the soul that then has bred this new archetype, this new identity. And again, if we go back to what we just saw, impulsiveness, compulsiveness, feeling like, we're trying to avoid, I'm getting it's like we're trying to avoid making a spiritual mistake. We're trying to avoid a spiritual mistake. And I would not be surprised if perfectionism was the archetype that was coming up here. So there's an archetype. There is a wounding that has happened to the soul, a miasm of the soul, a trauma to the soul that has created this way the soul feels like it has to exist, this archetype that feels like it has to exist in a certain kind of a way. And so let's look and see, am I allowed to find this archetype? Let's see if I can go to one of my archetype charts and see, is it on this chart? Is the archetype on this chart? Yes, so that's a yes. So now what archetype is it? The martyr archetype. I get it. I get it now. We're afraid of being our full spiritual selves because it feels compulsive and impulsive, and we're afraid of unkind acts being acted out against us if we become spiritual martyrs. We're afraid of becoming martyrs. We're afraid of becoming spiritual selves that end up getting ridiculed and having unkind things done to us because it has not been classically safe for us to be our spiritual selves. So again, it feels like, oh my gosh, if I am spiritual now and I express it in an external way, I'm not just talking about having a personal private spiritual life, although maybe there's a bit of that too, but it's like if I express my spiritual self, I risk becoming a martyr. I risk having unkind acts acted out against me, and that feels very impulsive for me, very risky for me to do that. And so again, we're just clearing all of this and opening all of us up to, the fact that, again, I'm not going to say that you're not going to have bad things come your way. If you do begin to have a spiritual life, depending on where you live. I mean, there's like 5 states in the United States right now where it is illegal to do tarot and charge people for tarot. Pennsylvania is one of them. That's the state that I come from. You legally cannot charge someone for tarot in the state of Pennsylvania. So I can understand why some people would be like, this feels really scary to me that it is still illegal in this state to practice what for a lot of people is a spiritual practice. I don't care what you say. Tarot is a spiritual practice for me. It is how I talk to my higher self. It is how I connect. It is how I review and analyze my own nature. It is how I understand myself as a spiritual being. And it's how I try to understand the world as spiritual beings. And so there are still states that is illegal in this country to do that. And there are still states in this country where you will absolutely be, picked upon for being spiritual or witchy or woo-woo. And so if you're in one of those places where you don't feel safe to be spiritual, I can see how this martyr archetype is coming up and it's making you feel powerless. Not only is it making you feel powerless, but let's be honest, you are powerless when you are operating as a martyr archetype. You have lost your power. And I'm not saying there isn't some benefit in it. Maybe there is. Maybe you're getting some benefit out of it. What percent does it benefit the collective to be afraid of their spirituality and in their martyr archetype? That was a 0%. That was really clear. So it's not benefiting us, actually, to be afraid of our own spiritual nature, to be afraid of owning who we are as spiritual beings. And so, again, it's part of why I'm doing this is, I have a full-time career. I don't need to be witchy on the internet, but I have felt called lately to express this publicly so that I can, again, support more people, but again, so that more people can feel comfortable and safe coming out as woo-woo and weird and spiritual and witchy. Because to me, when I see spirituality that is housed in witchiness and the kind of the woo spirituality that has no dogma, that has no structure, that has no rules like that, to me it is so beautiful and it is so healing and it is so comforting and it is so nurturing and it is so wonderful as somebody who had existential crisis and existential depression for a huge part of her life to finally get some peace around myself as a spiritual being and spirituality in general. And I would love to be able to share that with more people. And I'm hoping that in doing this work, more and more people can feel comfortable coming out as spiritual beings. So let's go to chart 21, take a look at anything else that might be happening here as it relates to this powerlessness. We're just going to ask to clear the belief that we should suffer, that we desire suffering, that suffering is good, that suffering is what makes us worthy. This can be an old, outdated religious belief that we desire to suffer because we think that suffering is, loved by God, right? Like God loves it when we suffer. We get rewarded for suffering. So releasing all of us from this belief that we need to suffer in silence, that we need to suffer without our spiritual power, that we should suffer without our spiritual identity. So we're releasing all of us from that now as best we can by saying, Spirit, clear it. Oh, and you can say with me, I release my desire to suffer now. I release myself from any desire to suffer that I've ever had related to any subject, related to any matter. I release myself from any vows I've ever made to suffering. I release myself from any agreement I've ever signed to suffer. I divorce myself from this idea that suffering is holy. I release myself from the idea that suffering will be rewarded in heaven. Okay, great. What else can we do? What other kind of weird stuff can we do today, y'all? What kind of weird stuff you want to do with me? Any other weird stuff you want to look at? You go ahead and make a comment and we'll see if I can make it happen for you. Okay, loss of hearing God. Yeah. And the note on here is look within yourself. You know, open yourself up to all of your senses, not just these physical ones, touch and smell and sight, sound. Open yourself up to your spiritual senses. What are your dreams telling you? What is your heart telling you? What is that, you know, that part of you that exists before language, the part of you that exists before words come to your mind, the part of you that exists right before you're falling to sleep at night, the part of you that is brought to life when you're hanging out with things that you love and, you know, feel really good to your soul. Maybe that's dogs, maybe that's babies, maybe that's baked goods. I don't care what it is, whatever it is. That version of you needs to be honored and revered and loved and nurtured and turned on. You know, how many of us have turned off our spiritual voice, our ears to hearing spirit, our heart to feeling spirit, our, you know, all the things, our eyes to seeing that which is spiritual. You can say right now, I open my eyes to see that which is spiritual. I open my ears to hearing that which is spiritual. I open my heart to feeling that which is spiritual. I turn on all of my spiritual senses now. And this is something that would probably benefit you to have as part of a practice. Like, I sit down at night before I go to bed, at least an hour before I go to bed, and I light all the candles on my altar and I say a prayer. Well, I light every single one. And then when I blow every single one out, I say thank you for answering that prayer. You know, that could be something that you start to incorporate into your spiritual practice, is like you light a candle every night before bed and say, I am open to hearing God. And then for as long as that candle is lit, you know, keep a journal next to you and just whatever comes to your heart, to your mind, write it down. And you can see, does that feel like that was God talking to you? Chances are it probably was. And chances are you've been close to hearing God because you were expecting God to be a certain way and to sound a certain way and to say certain things. And so when it doesn't come across as that way, you doubt it. But hearing God is hearing yourself. Hearing God is hearing your own intuition. Hearing God is trusting yourself when you get a little pull or you feel a little thing, and not doubting yourself and not waiting, not delaying, not, you know, pushing it away. So think on that. And if you want other recommendations for things you could do to start building a spiritual practice, let me know, because I'm happy to share some of the other things that I do that are not hard, they're not expensive, they don't even have to be embarrassing. It can just be very quiet for you yourself that you do. So our ego is involved here, and this is not surprising because our ego is always involved. We're humans, we got an ego, we got a shadow, that's just what it is. It's fine, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about your ego. Okay, you're fine. And let's see where our ego is at right now on our, should I do my map of consciousness or chart 3? You want me to do chart 3? No, do you want me to do map of consciousness? Yes, okay. So we're going to look on our map of consciousness again. This is this beautiful, colorful map. At the bottom here is when we hang out in the darker energies and the yucky energies. As we climb up in elevation, in our evolution as spiritual beings, we get up into the indigo, okay? And then that's the energies, the frequencies of the energies that are higher up there in that realm. And so when we are, let's just see. So where is our ego at? Where is our collective ego at right now when it comes to spirituality? Our ego is at guilt and shame. So way down here at the bottom, we are operating from guilt and shame. Okay, so we want to get that raised up. So how do we raise our ego up out of guilt and shame to be able to own who we really are as powerful, powerful, beautiful spiritual beings? Go to chart 17. That was perfect. I grabbed it. An unwillingness to learn. How often does this come up, you guys? Stop being unwilling to learn. Damn it. Like, we got to figure it out. You know, we got to, and I don't think we need to. I actually think it's going to happen naturally. I think part of what's happening in the astrology right now, part of what's happening in the world right now, we are waking up. As we talked about yesterday, we are waking up. And it's not even going to be hard anymore to wake up. It's going to be hard not to wake up. It's going to be hard to stay asleep. The pans, somebody's going to be, banging the wooden spoon on the pan. You're not going to be able to put your headphones on and ignore the wake up. We're waking up, and I release myself from my unwillingness to learn. You can say that with me. I release myself of any unwillingness to learn I've got going on right now. I am excited to learn. I am excited for the awakening. I'm ready. And we clear everybody's high self from any blocks they may have to sharing and enjoying the sharing of this new information and this new learning. So now where are we at on our chart? Now that we brought our ego up from its unwillingness to learn. Okay, now we're up at pride. Okay, so let's see what we can do to move us past pride. We want to get into peace and enlightenment is where we want to go on our chart anyway. So what do we got to do to get us past pride? This kind of makes some sense, right? Again, that's very egoic. The pride is very egoic. It's like, well, maybe it means that people start judging me differently. Maybe it means that I have to start looking at myself differently. If I accept myself as a powerful spiritual being, what does that say about me? And can I still have pride in who I am? I know a lot of people who have had a lot of pride about being non-believers and about being sciencey and logical. I know a lot of people who have a lot of pride for not being spiritual beings. And that's tough, because now you got to transition. Sorry, that's just what's happening. We're all transitioning into a more spiritual version of ourselves. So how can we help these people get up out of that energy of pride? That's what I thought. Just needed to confirm. What do we got going on here? Self-forgiveness. Self-forgiveness. Whew. Yeah. And that's a big one on every level. We could probably call in self-forgiveness in every single clearing we do, because a lot of us struggle with that. And if you are somebody who has negative thinking, really, even not really negative thinking, but just negative thinking at all, a lot of times the originator of that, the wound that causes that negative thinking, is a lack of self-forgiveness. We don't forgive ourselves for the mistakes we've made, for the challenges we've had, for our weaknesses. Say it with me right now, I forgive myself for my weaknesses. My weaknesses are not my fault. They are a part of my soul package. And I'll be working on them till the day I die. Yeah. Yeah. All right, so let's see. I think there's one more thing we can do here when it comes to getting us up out of that pride energy. I'm just sensing that there's one other thing. So what do we got going on here? Misuse of our energy in creating. We're not using our energy the way we should be using our energy in creating. And that's in creating the life we want for ourselves, and creating relationships, and creating connection with spirit, and creating, again, anything really. misusing our energy. That feels so true too. I mean, I think especially if you look at the world right now and how much wasted energy there is in general. I mean, think about the wasted energy just in like the clothing industry. And I know maybe that's a weird analogy, but it's what's coming to my mind right now. It's like, you know, fast fashion is what's coming to my mind right now. Fast creation. It's like, let me just get something out. Let me just pretend like I am like contributing something to the world when really it means nothing to me because I'm not connected to my spirit. I'm not connected to God. I'm not connected to source. I'm not connected to light. I'm not connected to anything. And I'm just feeling like I have to pump stuff out, and I pump stuff out, and I show up every day, and I create crap at work, and I come home and I create crap for my family, and I, you know, yeah. But it is uninspired. It's uninspired because we're not connected to our spiritual selves, our spiritual beings. Okay, so we're clearing all of us of that now. We're clearing all of us of the misuse of our life energy, of our creative energy, calling in awareness and wisdom for all of us to know how not to waste our energy, how not to get sucked into fast fashion, right? Okay, so now we're checking our ego, and she is all the way up at enlightenment, all the way up in that blue, so that's lovely. Okay, so now let's look at this. Now that we did this, I feel pretty good about that. I feel pretty good about where we're at. But let's look now at this worthiness thing. I have a feeling that our worthiness thing has been cleared, but let's check. So now what percent are we open to our worthiness? 100%. What percent are we blocked to believing that we are worthy? We're like 10% blocked. So let's look at that. Let's look at that. That's what's going to end our clearing today. How can we clear ourselves of this little last bit of blockage when it comes to believing that we are worthy? We go back to our discordant energy chart, the icky energy chart. We need to clear out unworthiness. Well, that's funny. Clear out unworthiness. The energy of unworthiness just needs cleared. Greed. I love that. Let's clear out some greed. We're clearing out intolerance. We're clearing out self-punishment. Here we go again with that self-forgiveness thing. Okay, so we're clearing all of those energies right now. We're clearing unworthiness. We're clearing greed. We are clearing intolerance. We are clearing self-punishment. Clearing all of that for us. Now, and you can just say, I release myself from all of these energies. Now, go ahead, take it away, universe, take it away, spirit. And again, I always just like to watch them float off into the universe. Anytime I'm trying to release an emotion, anytime I'm trying to release a negative energy, I really do. I just see it. And I don't have great visualizing capabilities. When I say I visualize things and see things, it's not like with my eyes. It's with this other thing. I don't know what it is. I can't explain it. But I like to visualize it really, truly just letting it go. And I'm like, yeah, bye. Okay. See ya. Good. No, bye. I definitely don't need you anymore. I really, really, really believe that getting involved in the process of our own spiritual healing is so helpful. Like really getting engaged in it, and not just our spiritual healing, but all healing. Like when I have an actual stomach ache, I lay my hands on my stomach and I'm like, okay, stomach, I'm going to let you release this now. And I literally let that stomach ache fall into my hands and I release it out into the universe physically. I swear it works. Like it works. So yeah, you should try it. It's amazing. Okay. So we're going to do 100% of 100% of mop up. Sorry, y'all. It's been a long day and I've had not full access to my executive functioning today. That is for sure. Words are harder for me today than normal. We're doing 100% of 100% of mop up. We're cleaning up the gym. We're picking up the socks. We're picking up the spills. We're kicking everybody out and saying, nah, you don't need to be here anymore. We are clearing it all out. And the new energy that we are calling in, we're going to call in worthiness. Obviously, we're also calling in gratitude. It's always a great one to call in. Gratitude, laughter, thoughtfulness. I like that. Gratitude, laughter, and thoughtfulness. Those are some additional energies for us today. And now we can drop back in. We can find ourselves right here, right now, in this very present moment, not worrying about the past, not thinking about the future, softening into the here and the now, and our power as spiritual beings, our power as beings who do not have to worry about being martyred or being a martyr. Powerful spiritual beings that can outwardly express just how dynamic and divine you are. All right, everyone. I hope that that was helpful for you in some way. And if you'd like to find me, you can find me at www.thepointedstone.com or www.thepointedstone.etsy.com. I'm actually about to record a voice note clearing for somebody who purchased a clearing off of my Etsy shop. You can do that too if you're just interested. If you're just like, what even is this? What even is this? What might come up for me? How might it help my life? Don't hesitate to reach out. I would love to work with you. Okay, thanks everybody, and we will see you next time on another episode of Clearing with Kate.